throw resources at it. You and I were talking before about this national campaign that happened with 30 years ago, 35 years ago with Press Smith and Foster and Les and all these folks. And whenever there's a conversation that comes up about a national ground campaign to talk about skiing, people bristle at it because of what we went through with that. And my career started on the tail end of it. But I think that there's probably something there. You and I were talking about before. How do we get half a dozen smart people in the room, Greg and you and Hallie and Dave and Brad Larson and folks like that, and say, here's the problem. How do we attack it? Because we're in a different world now. You don't have to spend $1 million worth of paid TV to get your message across.
Right, and that's a big change between 30 years ago when we tried it once. And by the way, just trying it once and failing. Would we have any skiers or riders if that was really our approach?
I would have never got out of high school.
But we have this, a completely different. Our channels are completely different, and the cost to reach people is so much less today. We don't have to buy these huge ad buys on national television to reach a national audience now.
Doesn't take 4 weeks to get creative together either. You do this in an afternoon or a week or so, especially with the creative folks that are in this industry. And maybe a national campaign isn't the answer, but I think getting lots of folks in a room to start really focusing on this problem is
establishing a strategy, a plan, and just identifying what the issues are and putting an idea together.
Yeah.
So when I think about how do we shape the industry, or how do we shape the perceptions of this sport, of this lifestyle, the culture of all this, I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from a lot of the individual resorts. I don't think this is a challenge that can be tackled at the individual resort level when we look at broad perceptions, but you've done a lot with how the perception of Jay, you've evolved the Jay perception from this renegade badass, resort to one that is now like a mecca for families, and it has it's badass, but there's a lot in between it. It seems like you've really changed the messaging over the years.
Yeah, I think we identified that we had to. We went from a marketing campaign that said, if you're not here for the mountain, you're not here. Both kind of psychologically and physically. That if the mountain wasn't at the core of your vacation expectation, then JP wasn't in your subset. To literally overnight starting to say, hey, we have a water park. Literally, we did that. So I think we identified what the need was, what the problem was, which was we're adding these assets. We need more people here to make all of it work. And then we just came up with an approach and messaging that felt honest and true to who we were, and was aimed at bringing in more people under the tent that were kind of like-minded, people that there was still a little bit of an edge to them. They wanted, they're the type of people that would come on vacation and participate with their family and not necessarily put them in daycare, that sort of thing. They wanted to have an experience, together. So I don't think there's anything groundbreaking in that approach necessarily, but there are some parallels to say, hey, we realized we needed more people, we needed more of these people to come up to Jay to make sense of the business model. Is there something at a national level where you can carve out time and say, we need more people to come in, these types of people that would be motivated by these sorts of things. Right. Now, how do we build creative and messaging and copy and language and channels to try to get at them? Because
it's not just families overall; it's a specific type of family that has a specific type of attitude and is looking for activities and experiences that fit like a lifestyle.
But there are variables out there that you could plug in and say, show me the people most inclined to take up a new sport at a young age. And how do we get a young family connected into skiing in such a meaningful way that within 4 or 5 years they become part of that 3%.
Yeah. We grow it past 3%.
They identify themselves as, I am now a skier. Can you do that in an environment where there's ground cover being provided by either a national body or some other consortium, some subset of a national body, where there's messaging out there running all the time?
Kind of greasing the skids
Yeah.
and making it a lot easier
Exactly.
for the individual resorts to have their messages.
It might work, especially if you can figure out an affordable way to do it. The nuance to our worlds now is that we have the ability to change the message by channel in a way that 30 years ago we certainly couldn't. So there's no reason that the appropriate message doesn't travel along the appropriate channel and hit the appropriate guest.
Right.
Now there's no excuse for not doing that,
Right.
really now. Yeah, I think there is that opportunity. I think there's even the change at the NSAA level, with Kelly in there right now. I think the best thing that I could possibly say about her is that she is one of the best listeners that I know. And to be in a position of leadership there, where you're in an industry that might have stalled out a little bit, it's probably the most important asset that somebody could bring to the table. I think hiring her was a fantastic move, and I think that she's going to figure some things out. I don't know that a national campaign is the answer, but I have less confidence in that as an answer than I do in believing that Kelly will find the right way, with a bunch of other smart people, Dave and all the other folks and Earl at NSAA. But with her leadership there, I think once we identify that that's something that has to be focused on, I think that she'll work hard to get the answers. I get excited like when I'm watching the NFL playoffs and the commercials through the holidays, and had that one spot that Biederman did out of New York City that was it was a live spot where a mother and a daughter went skiing at night, and they had flashlights on the side of the trail. And I tweeted something about that. Not that it was a great spot, whatever, but it's the fact that skiing is being positioned as aspirational in the national optic. I look at that, I'm like,
And especially that was her wish. That was like
right.
her dying mother's. What would be the ultimate thing I could
Are you
give
kidding
her?
me? I mean, like, that's it right there. Like, how I feel like skiing should have a lobbyist at in Hollywood that is constantly trying to integrate skiing memes into popular culture, movies, commercials, fucking sitcoms, whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
Proactive people.
Yeah.